Welcome back to StoriesX. When his teacher tried to humiliate Snoop Dogg's adopted son, the unlucky kid played his heart out, and her stunned face said she never expected it. Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Don't miss a beat from StoriesX. Let's dive in. The classroom at Jefferson Middle School buzzed like a beehive on a warm Arkansas afternoon. All scratched desks and chalk dust floating in the slanted sunlight. Kids chattered, tossing crumpled paper balls and trading half-whispered jokes before the bell. Malik Jones sat by the window, his pencil tapping a soft, steady beat against his notebook, a habit he'd picked up in tougher days, back when silence felt like a threat. The glass was smudged, framing a view of the cracked playground outside, but Malik wasn't looking. His eyes were on the history worksheet in front of him, neat answers scratched out in his careful handwriting. He liked getting stuff done early. It gave him a little pocket of calm in a world that hadn't always been kind. Miss Thornton swept in, her heels clicking sharp on the linoleum floor. She carried a stack of books under one arm, her navy skirt swishing like she owned the room, which she pretty much did. Most kids called her strict but fair, but Malik knew better. Fair didn't stretch to him. She'd been teaching here forever. Her hair pulled back tight in a bun that never budged, and in all the months he'd sat in her class, she'd barely called his name. If his hand went up, her gaze slid past like he was a ghost. If he slipped up, rare as that was, she'd linger on it, her voice dipping low like she caught him red-handed. He'd noticed. So had Tyler, the kid next to him, who'd leaned over once and muttered, "Yo, she acts like you're invisible, man." Malik had just shrugged. Maybe he was. Today felt off, though. Miss Thornton kept glancing his way. Not mad, not annoyed, but with a flicker of something he couldn't pin down. The lesson kicked off, a dry rundown on the Civil War, and Malik scribbled notes, pencil tapping between lines. He liked history, the way it showed people fighting through messes bigger than his own. But then, out of nowhere, her voice cut through the hum. "Malik." It was crisp, loud enough to turn heads. He froze, pencil mid-tap, and looked up. "Why don't you take this one?" she said, pointing at the board. The room shifted, kids craning necks, Tyler's eyebrows shooting up. Malik scanned the question. What was Sherman's March to the Sea? He cleared his throat, voice steady despite the sudden spotlight. It was a campaign to wreck the Confederacy's supplies and spirit, burn crops, tore up railroads, all that. Miss Thornton's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Not bad," she said, and moved on. A few kids swapped looks. Tyler said, "What the hell just happened?" But Malik kept his cool, pencil tapping again. Class rolled on, the clock ticking slow, until right before the bell. "Malik," she called again, sharper this time, as kids started stuffing books into bags. "Stay back a sec." The room emptied quick, leaving just the two of them. Malik slung his bag over his shoulder and walked to her desk, the air feeling heavy. She clasped her hands, leaning back in her chair. "I heard you talking the other day about your dad, Snoop Dogg," she said, her tone curling around the name like it was a riddle. Malik frowned. "Yeah, he's my dad. Adopted me a while back." He didn't like where this was going. Her eyes had that glint, like she was setting a trap. "Said he's a musician, huh?" she pressed, tapping her fingers on the desk. "Taught you some tricks?" "He's a rapper. Plays keys too," Malik said, keeping it short. "I mess around with it a little." Her smile widened, but it was cold, like a cat eyeing a mouse. "Good to know," she said, then waved him off. "Tomorrow, let's see what you've got." He paused at the door, her words sinking in. "What?" She nodded toward the old piano in the corner. Upright, dusty, keys yellowed like old teeth. "Play something for us. Show the class what Snoop's kid can do." Her voice had an edge, not friendly, not curious. A dare. Malik's stomach twisted. This wasn't about music. It was about her proving something, maybe to herself, maybe to him. He nodded just once and stepped into the hall, the bell's echo fading behind him. The walk home was quiet. West Markham Street stretching out under a low sun, shadows stretching long across the pavement. Malik's sneakers scuffed the sidewalk, his mind replaying her smirk. He'd been unlucky most of his life. bounce around, left behind, until Snoop pulled him out of the mess. Now this. He pushed through the front door, the smell of fried chicken hitting him as Snoop's voice boomed from the living room. "Yo, lil' man." Snoop called, sprawled on the couch in a black tracksuit, a beat thumping low from his phone. "How's my scholar holding up?" Malik dropped his bag, hesitating. "Rough day, Pops," he said, voice quiet. Snoop sat up, shades tilting down as he clocked the look on Malik's face. "Talk to me, fam. What's up?" Malik sank into the chair across from him, pencil still in hand, tapping slow. "Teacher's making me play piano tomorrow. In front of everybody. Feels like she wants me to crash." Snoop's grin faded, replaced by something steady, serious. "She trying to test you, huh? Thinks you gone fold." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Listen, fam. People gon' doubt you, 'cause they don't see the whole picture. But you got something they don't. You got heart, and you got what I taught you. Don't play for her. Play for you." Malik met his eyes, the tapping slowing. "What if I mess up?" Snoop chuckled, low and warm. "Then you mess up loud, lil' man. But you ain't gone. I know you. Hit them keys like you mean it. Showing who you are." He clapped Malik's shoulder, firm but gentle. "Now grab some chicken. We got work to do." Malik nodded, a flicker of fire sparking in his chest. Tomorrow wasn't just a setup anymore. It was a shot, and he wasn't about to miss. The house was alive that night, a warm hum spilling from the kitchen, where Snoop Dogg's playlist thumped low through a Bluetooth speaker. The smell of fried chicken lingered, mixing with the sharp tang of hot sauce Malik had drizzled over his plate. He sat at the dining table, picking at a drumstick, the grease smudging his fingers as his mind spun. The old piano loomed in his head, those chipped keys, that dusty frame. Like a shadow he couldn't shake. Snoop's words from earlier echoed too. "Play for you." Lil' man, easier said than done when a whole classroom was waiting to watch him trip. Snoop ambled in, a glass of iced tea in hand, his black tracksuit rustling as he leaned against the counter. "You still chaywin on that, fam?" he asked, nodding at the half-eaten chicken. Malik shrugged, wiping his hands on a napkin. "Ain't hungry no more, Pops. Just thinking." Snoop's shades caught the kitchen light as he tilted his head. "'Bout that piano gig tomorrow?" Malik nodded, his pencil tapping slow against the table's edge, a nervous little rhythm. "Yo, check this," Snoop said, setting his glass down and pulling up a chair. He sat close, voice dropping low like they were plotting something big. "Back when I was coming up, folks didn't think I'd make it neither. Said I talked too slow, looked too wild. But I flipped it, made him listen. You got that same juice, Malik. She's trying to put you in a box, but you gone bust it wide open." He tapped the table, firm. "Them keys? That's your mic, drop the beat on them." Malik's eyes flicked up, meeting Snoop's steady gaze. "She wants me to look stupid, though, like I don't belong there." Snoop grinned, slow and sharp. "Then show her you do. Ain't nobody own that room, but you when you play. Feel me?" Malik let out a breath, the tapping slowing. "Yeah, Pops, I feel you." Snoop clapped his shoulder, then stood. "Come on, let's hit the keys for you crash. Warm them hands up." They shuffled to the living room, where Snoop's sleek black piano sat by the window. Nothing like the clunker at school, all polished wood and smooth ivory. Malik slid onto the bench, fingers brushing the cool keys. Snoop leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Give me something easy, blues, like we practice." Malik nodded, letting his hands find their place. The first notes rolled out, soft, deep, a slow groove that filled the room like a heartbeat. Snoop bobbed his head, murmuring, "That's it, fam." Malik's fingers moved smoother now, the music pulling him in, away from Miss Thornton's smirk and the classroom stares. For a minute, it was just him and the sound. Steady, raw, real, good, Snoop said, stepping closer. "Now, take it up, give it some soul." Malik pushed harder, letting the melody climb, his right hand dancing over a quick run while his left kept the bass thumping. The notes weren't perfect. Snoop's piano was too good, too tuned compared to the school's junker, but it felt right. Snoop chuckled. "See? You got it. Tomorrow, don't overthink it. Just play what's in you. Malik stopped, hands resting on the keys, breathing deep. What if they laugh, Pops? Snoop's grin softened. Then they Logan at nothing, 'cause you gon' shut him down. Ain't no shame in stumbling, only in not getting back up. But you built different. He tapped Malik's chest, right over his heart. That's where the music lives. Bring it out. Malik nodded, a flicker of something solid settling in him. Snoop waved him off. Get some sleep, lil' man. Big day coming. Malik climbed the stairs, the house quieting behind him, but sleep didn't come easy. He flopped onto his bed, the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above. Miss Thornton's voice looped in his head. Let's see what you've got. And every time, it came with that cold smile. She didn't think he could do it. Probably figured he'd choke. Prove whatever she decided about him long ago. He rolled over, staring at the wall where a framed photo hung. Him and Snoop, grinning at some barbecue last summer. Snoop's arms slung around like he'd always belonged. Before Snoop, life had been a string of bad breaks. Foster homes, empty promises, nights wondering why he kept getting left behind. Snoop changed that, pulled him into a world where he wasn't just surviving. But tomorrow, that was on him. The clock ticked past midnight, then 1. Malik's pencil sat on the nightstand, still for once, but his mind wouldn't quit. He pictured the classroom, the kids who'd smirk, the ones who'd stare, Miss Thornton waiting for him to flop. Then he saw Snoop's face, that steady nod. Play for you. He closed his eyes, imagining the keys under his fingers, the music pushing back the doubt. It wasn't about her. It was about him proving he wasn't that unlucky kid anymore. By the time dawn crept through the blinds, Malik was up, bleary-eyed but buzzing. He yanked on a faded hoodie and jeans, splashing water on his face in the bathroom. Downstairs, Snoop was already at the stove, flipping pancakes, the smell pulling Malik in. Morning, champ, Snoop said, sliding a plate his way. Ready to drop it? Malik grabbed a fork, nodding. Yeah, Pops, I think so. Snoop grinned, tossing him a bottle of syrup. That's my boy. Go own that room. Malik ate quick, the sugar hitting his veins like fuel. He slung his bag over his shoulder, stepping out into the Little Rock morning. Air crisp, skies streaked pink. The walk to school felt different, each step heavier, sharper. Miss Thornton wanted a show. She'd get one, just not the kind she expected. The classroom at Jefferson Middle School felt like a pressure cooker that morning. The air thick with whispers and the faint squeak of sneakers on linoleum. Sunlight streamed to the windows, bouncing off scratched desks where kids fidgeted, their eyes darting toward Malik Jones. He sat in his usual spot by the window, hoodie pulled low, pencil tapping a slow beat against his notebook. Word had spread fast. Miss Thornton's dare from yesterday had turned into the day's main event. Tyler leaned over, voice low. You really playing today, man? Malik nodded, keeping his gaze on the desk. Guess so. Miss Thornton swept in, her navy skirt swishing, a stack of books thudding onto her desk. She didn't look at Malik right away, but the room could feel her focus, like a spotlight waiting to swing his way. The lesson started, some droning bit about Reconstruction, but nobody was really listening. Chairs creaked. Kids swapped glances, a few smirking like they were ready for a flop. Malik's stomach churned, but his hand stayed steady, Snoop's voice looping in his head. Play for you, lil' man. Halfway through, Miss Thornton snapped her book shut, the sound sharp enough to jolt the room. Well, she said, glancing at the clock with a thin smile, we've got time. Perfect. She turned toward the old piano in the corner. Upright, dusty, its yellowed keys chipped like broken teeth. Malik, let's see what you can do. The air tightened. Kids shifted. Some whispering, a muffled snicker rippling from the back. Tyler shot him a look, half hype, half worry. Malik didn't rush. He slid his pencil into his bag, stood, and walked to the piano, every step echoing in the hush. The room watched. Brandon, a loud kid in the third row, smirked. Madison, near the door, crossed her arms like she was bored already. Miss Thornton clasped her hands, her face calm but her eyes glinting with something cold, expectant. Malik ran his fingers over the keys, light and quick, testing them. They were stiff, out of tune just enough to notice. Nothing like Snoop's smooth setup at home. He exhaled, sat, and let his hands hover. A low laugh broke the quiet. Brandon, muttering something under his breath. Malik heard it, felt it, but didn't look up. This wasn't about them. He pressed the first keys, soft, deep notes rolling out like a slow breath. A blues groove, the kind Snoop had shown him, simple but heavy. The whispers died fast. His left hand laid down a steady bass, thumping like a heartbeat, while his right started weaving a melody. Rough, real, pulling from nights he'd spent surviving before Snoop found him. The room shifted. Tyler's jaw dropped a little. Madison uncrossed her arms, leaning forward. Brandon's smirk faded, his eyebrows creeping up. Malik didn't see it. He was in the music now, eyes half closed, fingers moving like they knew the way. The piano groaned under his touch, its warped soundboard fighting back. But he made it sing anyway. He pushed harder, letting the melody climb, a quick run skittering up the keys. Something Snoop had drilled into him, tough but clean. Miss Thornton's arms dropped to her sides, her face tightening. She'd expected a stumble, a kid fumbling through a mess of notes. Instead, the sound filled the room, raw and alive, wrapping around every desk, every doubt. Malik hit a deep chord, then another, the music swelling like a wave. Kids stared, some wide-eyed, some nodding slow like they couldn't help it. He didn't stop, didn't falter, just let it flow. Pain, fight, hope, all spilling out in a rhythm that owned the space. Then the finish, a rolling bass line crashing into a sharp, bright chord. The last note hung, heavy, before fading. Silence. Malik lifted his hands, resting them on his lap, breathing steady. A clap broke it. Tyler, grinning like he'd won something. Then another and another, until the room erupted, kids whooping, banging desks. Brandon shook his head, muttering, "Man, what?" Madison clapped slow, her face stunned. Miss Thornton didn't move. Her lips pressed tight, eyes locked on Malik, unreadable but shaken. She hadn't seen it coming. Not this. Malik stood, the applause still ringing, and walked back to his seat, hoodie slouched, calm as ever. He'd played for himself, just like Snoop said, and the room felt it. Miss Thornton cleared her throat, voice clipped. Well, that was unexpected. The clapping died down, but the energy didn't. She'd lost something today, and Malik had claimed it. The bell rang sharp through Jefferson Middle School, cutting the applause like a knife, but the buzz didn't fade. Kids spilled out of Miss Thornton's classroom, voices overlapping in a messy chorus as they shoved books into bags and shuffled toward the hall. Malik Jones slung his hoodie over his shoulder, the weight of the piano still tingling in his fingertips. Tyler caught up quick, clapping him on the back hard enough to make him stumble. "Bro, you just blew everybody's mind in there," he said, grinning wide. "Where'd that come from?" Malik shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Just something I know." The hallway was a river of noise, lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking, kids shouting over each other. But Malik felt it shift around him. Eyes followed him, not sneaky anymore, but open, curious. Madison Green, usually too cool to care, slowed as she passed, nodding once. "That was dope," she said, then kept walking like it was no big deal. Brandon, trailing behind, muttered, "Didn't think you had it in you," half annoyed, half impressed. Malik didn't answer, just kept moving, the echoes of the keys still humming in his chest. Miss Thornton stayed behind her desk as the room emptied, her navy skirt crisp against the chair, hands clasped tight. She hadn't said much after Malik's last note, just flipped open her lesson plan and barked at everyone to settle down. But her face had told the story, lips pressed in, eyes darting like she'd lost her footing. Malik had seen it, felt it, even if she wouldn't admit it. She wanted him to crash, to prove he was a nobody she'd pegged him for. Instead, he'd turned her game inside out. He hit the cafeteria at lunch, the smell of greasy pizza and spilled soda hitting him as he grabbed a tray. Tyler slid in next to him, still hyped. Man, you should have seen Brandon's face. He looked like he swallowed a bug. Malik chuckled, grabbing a slice. "Yeah, well, he'll get over it." But it wasn't just Brandon. Kids he'd never talked to before swung by his table. Some asking about the piano, others just staring like he'd grown a new head. A girl with braids, Keisha, leaned over from the next row. You play like that all the time? Malik nodded, chewing slow. When I can. The chatter kept rolling, but Malik's mind drifted. He thought about Snoop, how he'd be waiting at home, probably cooking something loud and messy, ready to hear the rundown. Malik could already picture it. Snoop in that black tracksuit, leaning against the counter, shades low, asking, "How'd it go, lil' man?" He'd tell him. Every note, every clap, the way Miss Thornton's smirk had cracked. Snoop would grin, clap his shoulder, say something like, "Told you, fam, you got the juice." And he'd be right. The walk home felt lighter, the Little Rock sun dipping low, painting the sidewalks gold. Malik's sneakers scuffed the pavement, his bag bouncing against his hip. He stopped at Mr. Henson's corner store, the bell jingling as he stepped in for a water. The old man behind the counter looked up, his gray mustache twitching. "Heard you made some noise today, boy," he said, voice gravelly but warm. Malik paused, bottle in hand. "Word travels fast, huh?" Mr. Henson chuckled. "Always does when it's good. Proud of you, kid." Home hit him with the smell of barbecue, ribs sizzling on the grill out back, smoke curling through the open door. Snoop was in the yard, flipping meat with a spatula, his playlist thumping from a speaker perched on the porch. "Yo, lil' man," he called, spotting Malik. "Get out here. Tell me how you dropped it." Malik grinned, dropping his bag inside and stepping out. The heat from the grill licked the air as he sank into a chair, the day spilling out of him. "Pops, I played," he said, voice steady but alive. "Blues, like you showed me. Shut the whole room up." Snoop's shades tilted down, his grin spreading slow. "That's my boy. How'd she take it, that teacher?" Malik leaned back, picturing it. Looked like she ate something sour. Didn't know what to say. Snoop laughed, loud and deep, flipping a rib. "See? You flipped the script, fam. That's power making 'em see you when they don't wanna." Malik nodded, the weight of it settling in. "Kids clap, pops. Even the ones who don't like me." Snoop set the spatula down, turning serious. "That's 'cause you showed 'em what's real. Ain't about proving her wrong. It's about knowing you're enough. Keep that close, lil' man world's gone test you plenty, but you got the keys now." The ribs hit the table, smoky and hot, and they ate under the fading sky, music weaving through the night. Malik felt different, not just heard, but seen. Miss Thornton's plan had backfired, and the echoes of those notes were still ringing, loud enough to carry him forward. The next day at Jefferson Middle School dawned quiet, the usual chaos softened by a gray sky threatening rain. Malik Jones walked to the front doors, hoodie slung loose over his shoulders, the faint echo of yesterday's piano still humming in his bones. The halls buzzed with kids rushing to lockers, but it wasn't the same. Eyes lingered on him, some quick, some bold, whispers trailing like a wake. He'd flipped something yesterday, and the air carried it, heavy and real. Class started slow. Miss Thornton at the front with her navy skirt pressed sharp, her lesson book open like a shield. She didn't look at Malik, not once, her voice clipping through dates and facts about Reconstruction. The room felt off. Kids still stealing glances his way. Tyler doing a piano in his notebook with a grin. Brandon slouched in his seat, arms crossed. But even he didn't crack a joke. Miss Thornton's control was there, but thinner, like a thread stretched too tight. Malik tapped his pencil, soft and steady, waiting. She didn't call on him. The whole hour passed without his name, her eyes sliding past like he was invisible again. But it didn't sting, not this time. He'd made her see him yesterday, and that was enough. When the bell rang, kids bolted, but Tyler hung back, nudging Malik as they hit the hall. "She's shook, man. You rattled her good." Malik smirked, shrugging. Maybe she'll think twice now. Lunch was a circus. Pizza trays clattering, soda cans hissing open, but Malik's table got crowded fast. Keisha slid in across from him, braids swinging as she leaned forward. "You playing again sometime?" she asked, eyes bright. Madison dropped her tray next to her, nodding. "Yeah, You can't just drop that and dip. Malik chewed his slice, letting their words sink in. Might, he said, voice low but warm. We'll see. They kept talking, pianos, music, Snoop, but he just listened, feeling the shift. He wasn't the unlucky kid anymore. The walk home was damp, a light drizzle slicking the sidewalks of Little Rock. Malik's sneakers splashed through puddles, his bag bouncing against his hip. The gray sky mirrored his old life, cloudy, uncertain. But today it didn't weigh him down. He stopped at Mr. Henson's store, the bell jingling as he grabbed a water. Still riding that high, huh? The old man said, grinning through his mustache. Malik nodded. Something like that. Mr. Henson waved him off. Keep it up, boy. You're going places. Home smelled like cornbread and collards. Snoop in the kitchen stirring a pot. His black tracksuit swapped for a red apron tied loose. Music thumped from the speaker. Old jazz, smooth and deep. Yo, Lil Man, he called, spotting Malik. How's the champ holding up? Malik dropped his bag, sinking into a chair. Good, Pops. Real good. Snoop turned, leaning against the counter, shades low. Teacher give you any static today? Nah, Malik said, grabbing a piece of cornbread. She went quiet, didn't even look at me. Snoop chuckled, stirring the greens. That's 'cause you shook her world, fam. She don't know how to play you now. Malik nodded, the warm bread crumbling in his hands. Kids kept talking about it, though. Want me to play again. Snoop set the spoon down, turning serious. That's the move, Lil Man. You open a door. Now you decide how far you walk through it. He pulled up a chair, sitting close. Listen, life's gonna throw more Miss Thorntons at you. Folks who see you and think less. But you got the tools now. That piano? It's your voice when words ain't enough. Use it. Malik met his eyes, the tapping gone, hands still. You think I can keep it up, Pops? Like you? Snoop grinned warm and wide. You already are. Fam ain't about being me. It's about being you. You turned the setup into a win. That's your rhythm now. He clapped Malik's shoulder firm. Keep playing. World's gone, hear you loud. Dinner hit the table. Green steaming, cornbread golden, and they ate with the jazz weaving through the room. Malik felt it settle, a new beat in his chest. Miss Thornton could ignore him all she wanted. The classroom wasn't hers anymore. He claimed it, note by note, and the kids knew it too. Outside, the rain tapped the windows soft and steady, but inside, it was warm, solid, home. Later, Malik sat at Snoop's piano, fingers brushing the keys. He played slow, a blues riff, simple but deep, letting it fill the quiet. Snoop leaned in the doorway, nodding. That's it, Lil Man. That's you. Malik smiled, small but real. The unlucky kid was gone. This was his sound now, and he'd keep it ringing. Malik Jones, an unlucky kid adopted by Snoop Dogg, proved talent can outshine any prejudice. When his teacher tried to humiliate him in front of the class, Malik didn't fold. He sat at that beat-up piano and played a blues tune that silenced the room. Applause erupted. Miss Thornton stood stunned, and he turned the jab into a win. From forgotten kid, Malik found his voice through music, guided by Snoop's words. Play for you, Lil Man. This ain't just about a song. It's a lesson in standing tall, turning pain into power and making the world listen. No one gets to define you. Let your gift speak, and let it speak loud.